Do you feel like everything you once believed is a complete lie? Or are you grappling with a sense of disconnection from those around you, including your business? What if these feelings aren't signs of losing your mind, and rather are powerful indicators of a profound spiritual transformation? In today's video, I am going to reveal 9 clear signs that any busy Black women business owner can use to test herself and explore if she has awakened spiritually. You see, 99% of Black women business owners do not recognize the signs. So today, I am going to walk you through them. First, let me give you some examples of what's keeping you from spotting the signs right now. Hola, mis amores. I'm Yenory Pouncil, a fourth generation Garifuna High-Priestess and spiritual guide. Over the past 14 years, I've witnessed profound spiritual awakenings, particularly among Black women wealth creators that are embracing their wildest desires with grace and with ease. Today, I'm excited to share with you the most powerful signs of spiritual awakenings that have emerged from my transformative journey and how they can align your experience to cultivate joy in your life. Sign number 1. Have you ever wondered where your parents or the people that raised you got their beliefs from? In 2016, I experienced a very challenging situation. My favorite uncle was actually killed here in Honduras, where I am right now. And at the time, I was focused on checking all of the boxes. I mean, I had gone to college, check. I had 2 bachelors, check. I had a master's, check. I had married somebody's son, check. I was living in this gorgeous apartment in DC, check. And I also had a role as a director of communications for an association. And when he died, I found myself feeling very confused and very disoriented because I had been focused on checking all these boxes of success. And when he transitioned, for the first time, I noticed that I didn't enjoy the view. I had encountered with climbing the ladder of success and getting to the top and not enjoying the view. And suddenly I started to wonder, why am I doing all this chasing? Why am I doing all this achievement? What's driving my decisions and my experiences at this point of my life? And that's when I began to look at myself differently. That's when I began to question things in my reality. That's when I began to determine that I was going to go from being confused and being oblivious of what was going on underneath the surface to getting to a place where I felt deeply enlightened in my life and how I was living my life and why I was choosing to live my life that way. This is why the number one sign that you are currently experiencing a spiritual awakening or that you have experienced a spiritual awakening is that you start to question your reality. Because when you are living in the old version of who you are, you're not questioning yourself. You're not looking at where does your belief system comes from? Why are you living your life the way you live it? And why are you choosing to listen to people about how to live your life? And if you're anything like me, or where I was when I was having this experience in 2016, it's very likely that you too haven't done this, that you haven't asked yourself, where are these beliefs coming from? Where did the people that raised you get their belief systems from? And why are you choosing to follow these beliefs blindly wherever you are in your life right now? You're likely also feeling a little guilty because there are other things you want to do with your life. There are other visions you have for yourself. And this feeling of guilt that you're having underneath the surface is one of the reasons why you're not able to see the blessing in your situation. It's one of the reasons why you're feeling like you're not living the life you desire, even when you are doing the things that in some level are bringing you joy. This is why when you start to question your reality, you are experiencing a spiritual awakening because you're starting to release that feeling of guilt. And you're starting to realize that the healing you truly desire, the clarity that you're yearning for, is coming from within. And when you are in this place, you can experience your life from a different perspective. And you can allow yourself to question things about your reality that before you were following blindly. And you can begin to do it because within you, you're starting to awaken your highest self. And this is why questioning your reality is a clear sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening. Sign number 2. Have you ever caught yourself avoiding responsibility for your actions? When I became a full-time entrepreneur, this was back in 2018, I remember doing a coaching program and the mentor encouraged us to send an email to our closest friends, colleagues, and people that we respected and ask them 3 questions. One of the questions that he recommended that we ask was, what are our weaknesses? What are the things that people cannot count on us for? So I sent this email out to about 15 people. And when they came back, unanimously, one of the areas that people identified as my weakness was never being on time. They said they couldn't count on me to be on time. And to be honest, I was a bit shocked because until that moment, I hadn't thought about me as someone that couldn't be counted to be on time. And the more I started to think about this and to look at myself and look at my timeliness, I realized that I was making excuses for myself. I realized that I was feeling like a victim of my circumstances and always blaming everything and everyone else because I was late. When in reality, it was me. I was the one making a decision to stick around longer. I was the one making a decision to avoid leaving when I knew it was time to leave. I was the one thinking that I had another 5 minutes, when in reality, I should have left 30 minutes ago. And to be honest with you, it wasn't until I began to look at the receipts, until I began to look at how many flights I had missed, how many thousands of dollars I had spent to rebook flights, to rebook train tickets, how many deadlines I had missed and I had been late for, that I began to realize and really notice the extent to which I was avoiding taking responsibility for my actions. And it was very eye opening because it was the first time that I ever saw myself from that lens. And it was very shocking too, which is one of the things that happens when you're having a spiritual awakening. You can be really shocked by the things that you're learning about yourself, that you are uncovering about yourself that you have been doing unconsciously. And this moment in my life became a huge catalyst because it's what helped me go from being a victim and feeling like a victim of my circumstances, of my situations, thinking that was the traffic that made me late, or it's so and so that didn't get there, that got there too early, making all these different excuses to justify my behavior. It wasn't until I began to look at the depth that was going on and decided to release the attachment to avoid responsibility for myself that I was able to step out of that victim energy that I was under, or victim spell really that I was under, and instead become an architect of my life where I was focused on the things that I could control and only on the things that I can control, no matter how hard it felt. And this is why the second sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening is that you start to face your actions and you start to do it with uncomfortable honesty. You start to look at yourself and how you're acting versus how you think you're acting. And in that process, you begin to notice things about yourself that before you weren't aware of. Because I know that if you are here, you and I are probably very similar. And you have found yourself, whether you want to admit it or not, making excuses for your shortcomings. You have found yourself feeling like a victim of your circumstances, and probably you don't even know it. And depending on where you are in your life, I know you likely feel a level of shame for showing up in this way and not knowing how to break this pattern. And it is those feelings of shame that are present for you that are keeping you from seeing the very ways in which you can step out of this energy and start to show up like an architect in your life. When you're having a spiritual awakening, this sign is here to show you and really to remind you that taking responsibility for yourself and for your actions is really here to help you and not to hinder you or make you feel bad like some of us have learned to feel in the past. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that shifting out of these patterns of victimhood into the energy of being an architect can be very challenging and it can truly stretch you. And that's why I focus on walking my clients through a proven system that shows them how they can do this in their lives with a level of ease and grace that they truly desire to experience in their day to day. If you want access to my complete system, I want you to drop system in the comments below, and I will personally send you the link so that you can book a 15-minute conversation with me to explore our alignment and to see if you are a good fit for it. Sign number 3. Do you ever find yourself second guessing your decisions? When I became a business owner, especially a full-time business owner, one of the hardest parts of having a business was making sales calls, having sales calls. And this was very challenging for me because every time I got on a call and someone will say no to the offer I was presenting, I took it very personally. I had this fear of rejection underneath the shadow that I didn't even know was there. So every time I would do a sales call and people would tell me no, I would immediately second guess everything about my business, my strategy, my prices, my offer, the results I was delivering. Even though I was delivering amazing results, I was second guessing everything because I was reacting with a fear based response every time people were saying no. And it was all rooted in this fear of rejection that I didn't even know I had when I began my business. And when I was in this space, I remember feeling like I was not in charge in my life. I actually felt like a passenger. I felt like other people were making decisions for me, and I was chasing this approval, this external validation from others, and putting my own integrity on the line. I was taking clients that I knew I wasn't a good fit for, and I was taking them because I really wanted the money. I was lowering my prices with people because I felt that if I lower my prices, then I will be good enough for them so that they can hire me and they can work with me, especially when they used to tell me that they couldn't afford my services. And that simply wasn't the way I wanted to do business. And when I finally began to look at my decisions, when I began to look at how you felt to make my decisions and to identify the power in my decisions, all of that began to change. And suddenly, I was no longer feeling like a passenger in my life. Now I was feeling like a driver. I was feeling like I was in the driving seat and that I didn't have to shrink myself in order to be accepted. And I could honor my value. And the people that were in alignment with that value, guess what? They will find me. And this is why the third sign that you are experiencing or have experienced a spiritual awakening is that you are making different decisions. Because when you are in the patterns of the old self, you're moving in old ways. When you have a spiritual awakening, something powerful begins to happen. You begin to look at yourself differently. And by extension, you begin to show up differently. And that means making different decisions in your life. And that is a big sign that you're having a spiritual awakening because you're no longer showing up in your old patterns. No, you are starting to show up in your new patterns, in the new way you want to show up. And that can only happen when you have awakened from your unconscious way of behaving into a new way of being that's actually feeling good to you. Like me, you're likely second guessing your decisions. Just like I was second guessing my decisions when I was doing my business early on and I was getting no's on sales calls. And like me, you're likely feeling like you're giving into the energy of self doubt instead of showing up to your decisions with the self confidence that you know is within you every time things go in a different way than you planned. And this is normal. You are not alone if you are experiencing this. That feeling of self doubt that you're having is actually helping you overcome it. It's helping you nurture the self confidence. It's helping you shift and pivot from self doubt into self trust. You want to look at it. You want to pay attention to these feelings when they show up for you. And I know you want to break free from this pattern. I know you want to shift your behavior. And in order to do that, it is so important that you begin to embrace that you can make different decisions. Because when you're having a spiritual awakening, part of that awakening, especially this sign, is here to remind you that you can make different decisions, that you are able to control yourself, that you're not at the mercy of your environment or you're not at the mercy of the people that are around you. And he actually does a great job of putting you in charge of your life so that you can make different changes in other parts of your life as well. So when this sign shows up for you, you are getting a very powerful reminder. You are being reminded that you can make powerful decisions, that you can feel confident in your ability to make these decisions, no matter the outcome. And you're learning what is going to be required of you at the current place that you are at to make those decisions and to make them with joy, because you know I'm all about the joy and I want you to experience that joy. And this is why making different decisions is a clear sign that you are experiencing or have experienced a spiritual awakening. Sign number 4. Have you ever found it difficult to say no when you truly wanted to? I remember when I was living in Washington, D.C., at the time I was engaged to my now husband, and my mom called me and she was asking me for something. I want to say she was asking me for some money. And for the first time, I had the courage to muster, like a shy little being, a shy little kid in the back, the word no. This was very difficult for me because I grew up groomed for people pleasing. I grew up with a conditioning, a set of beliefs that you do what your parents tell you to do and you don't question it. As I share with you, I'm a 4th-generation Garifuna High-Priestess. I'm originally from Honduras, where I am right now, actually. And in Honduras, you're taught to honor your father, honor your mother, and whatever your mom says, especially your mom, you do whatever your mom says. You do not question it. And when I got the courage to tell my mother no, all of those thoughts were coming up. I had a lot of feelings of discomfort when I told her no. And I told her no because I was now married to another person. So I couldn't just give my mother money without consulting with my partner. And that was very hard for me because I was used to telling my mother yes about everything. When I say everything, everything. If my mother would say jump, I would say how high. I wasn't stopping to ask her like, "Hey, could you do this on your own? Like, why do I gotta be the one to help you? Is there someone else you can call?" No, I was feeling like she was my responsibility, especially because I'm my oldest daughter. And I felt that I was the one that needed to help her and there was no one else. And this was very difficult for me to tell her no because I was so afraid that she would reject me. I was so afraid that she wouldn't love me. I was so afraid of disappointing her. And that's one of the things that happens when you are experiencing a spiritual awakening. You notice the feelings of frustration that come up because you're showing up in alignment. You notice that it is frustrating to say no when you have been taught that you should, quote unquote, say yes. And you also begin to notice that there's an opportunity for you to experience ease in your life. There is a level of liberation that that no brings you, even if it doesn't feel comfortable. And when I embraced that about myself, when I embraced that saying no, even if it felt extremely uncomfortable and hard, was also liberating, was also a way of me taking my power back. I was able to shift my perspective and I was able to start to experience the ease of standing up for myself, especially with my mom, who has such a power over me because, she's my mom. And I know that I'm not alone on this. I know that if you are here, you also experience these things. And this is why the 4th sign that you are experiencing or have experienced a spiritual awakening is releasing the expectations that others have of yourself. Not just but setting boundaries, going a step further by being the boundary. There's a difference between setting boundaries and being the boundary. What is it? When you set the boundary, you put the expectations on other people to honor the boundary. When you are being the boundary, you become the person that honors the boundary. If I have set this tone that I don't want to be called after 10 o'clock p.m., which was one of the things I was doing earlier on in my life, because I really wanted to be able to close off the amount of time people would call me and ask me for stuff. And people will call me at that time. If I'm setting the boundary, I get upset because they call me. If I'm being the boundary, I don't even see the call because my phone is on silence and I'm not picking it up. That is the difference. And if you are here and you're watching this video, I want you to take a moment and share in the comments below if you are setting the boundaries or if you are being the boundaries, because making that distinction is going to be a very supportive part of your experience as you have your spiritual awakening. And it's going to help you experience your spiritual awakening with ease and with flow. If you're here and you're watching this video, You and I are likely very similar. I've said this before because it's really the people that I attract are very much like me. So if you are here, you probably are also a recovering people pleaser. I mean, raise your hand if you've been recovering from people pleasing. My hand is raised. And it's okay. It's normal to experience that, especially with our parents, the people that raised us. And I also know that can feel really frustrating to you. And it can feel frustrating to say yes when you truly want to say no. And I also know that when you are having a spiritual awakening, you begin to have the courage to say those no's with confidence. And that frustration that you're feeling is here to show you that you are being awakened, that you are realizing and increasing your awareness on how it feels to shrink yourself, how it feels to silence yourself. And because of that, you have a very powerful opportunity to stop doing that shit, to start putting yourself first, and to start saying no when you mean it. So when you say yes, you also mean it. And you can feel good about the yes just as much as you can feel good about the no. And that's one of the things that this sign comes to teach us is that we can feel really good about saying no. And when we feel good about saying no, we feel even better when we say yes. And isn't that wonderful to be able to truly feel aligned and say yes when you want to and say no when you also want to? That's the gift that the spiritual awakening brings us. And that's why anytime that you are being the boundary in your life is a clear sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening or have experienced a spiritual awakening in your life. Sign number 5. Do you have a difficult time or do you ever find it hard to forgive yourself for your past mistakes? In 2023, I experienced my first business chargeback. Hopefully my last. But you never know because you're in business, these things happen. And this chargeback was for $20,000. Until this point, I was used to having very smooth business practices. By now, I had been in business since full time since 2018, so about 6 years, and I had never had an issue with a client like this before. So when this thing happened, I started to go through it. I went through a period of depression because I was so distraught by everything and I just didn't know how to handle it. It was the first time that I had experienced something like this. And even though I have mentors and people in my corner that were very supportive, it just kind of shocks you. So you don't even know what to do. For a while, I didn't even realize how much it was impacting me because of how much I was challenged by this. And to be honest with you, I started to feel really pessimistic. I started to feel like I had disappointed myself, like I had destroyed my business because I had allowed myself to be in a situation that, to be honest, I couldn't control. And I wasn't handling that well. Sometimes when you have a business, you don't handle things that you can't control well, especially when it comes to income, because you have a vision for your income. You have a vision for the things that you are spending and how you're spending it. And you may not have a vision of a $20,000 chargeback being part of your reality. I certainly didn't. There was a part of me that felt like I had destroyed my business. And now I was getting punished for being a bad business owner. As I reflect back, I know none of these things were true. And I know that it was all helping me be the person that I am today and have the type of business that I have today. And at that time, though, I didn't feel like that. I didn't have this awakening to be able to express it to you in this way. I definitely felt like I was being punished for being a bad business owner. And it was that moment, it was that experience that taught me a very valuable lesson. I was reminded that I could lean in the gift or into the gift of self forgiveness. And by allowing myself to experience that self forgiveness, I was able to shift out of feeling pessimistic for my life and my decisions to feeling optimistic about my business and about my future as a business owner, and feeling like this thing that had happened to quote unquote to me was actually not happening to me. It was happening through me to create space for the type of business that I truly desire and to help me shift out of those old ways of being into the ways that actually felt aligned for me and that honestly brought me joy in the way that the way I was doing business wasn't bringing me joy. I was able to release the attachment to perfectionism and give myself space to be human and give myself grace for what I had experienced and treat myself with the compassion that I deeply desired. And this is why This is a powerful sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening because you get to see yourself differently. This is why the fifth sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening is that you are giving yourself grace. Because one thing about business owners, especially Black women business owners, we have been taught we got to be perfect. We have been taught that we have to be really, really good at what we do in order to get half of the opportunities that other people get. And because we have received this messaging by society, we have attached our identity to the energy of perfectionism. And part of being perfect is not giving yourself grace. It's not giving yourself kindness. It's not bringing in yourself forgiveness because you're too busy wanting to be perfect. And that's the energy that I was on. That's the energy that this spiritual awakening or this sign of a spiritual awakening came to help me shift out of. You and I both know that you likely feel very irritated any and every single time things do not go the exact way that you planned it. You and I both know that the energy of perfectionism is strong. And this is the energy that keeps you from seeing that you have a sign that you're going through a spiritual awakening. This is the energy that keeps you stuck in your situation and not giving you the opportunity to expand your wings and blossom into the exact type of business owner that you desire to be. Because I know you want to be kind to yourself. I know you want to treat yourself with kindness and compassion, especially in those moments. When somebody does a chargeback on your business, oh, that's a moment when you want to give yourself some kindness and compassion. Anytime you're attached to the energy of perfectionism, that's a moment when you want to give yourself some kindness and some compassion. And when this sign shows up for us, it's here to tell you something really important. You are not your mistakes. Write this down. You are not your mistakes. The reality is that there are no mistakes because as long as you are learning from your experience, as long as you are taking the time to capture what you can do differently if you are ever in a situation again, there are no mistakes. There are only lessons that you are living that you can apply and you can share with others, whether it be it other business owners like I'm doing right now, or your children like I do with my kid, or your partner or your family members. This is a gift. This is the gift that giving ourselves grace gives us. And this is why this is a clear sign that you are going through a spiritual awakening. I've been now serving women leaders, particularly Black women leaders, for 14 years. I've been at this for quite some time. And in that time, I can't tell you how much I've experienced a dance with the energy of perfectionism. This is the energy that I understand, and I understand it very closely because I experience it. I am constantly reminding myself of the ways that I can step out of this energy. And this is why I focus on helping my own clients release out of this energy so that they can give themselves grace, so they can also leverage the energy of self forgiveness. So, if as you're watching this, you're thinking to yourself, Yenory, I want to also release the energy of perfectionism. I want to give you access to the same system that my clients are using. And in order for us to do that, I want you to drop systems in the comments below. And I am going to give you a link to a 15-minute conversation that you and I are going to have to explore our alignment and to see if this system is a good fit for you. Because it's not for everybody. However, if it is for you, you are going to find it extremely helpful. And I want to make sure that you have it so that it can serve you in the moments when it gets really easy to be in the energy of perfectionism instead of channeling the energy of grace that is also available to you. Which brings me to sign number 6. Do you realize that a simple mindset shift can completely transform your entire reality? In 2021, I was pregnant with my son, Sage. And when I got pregnant with Sage, my body changed and it changed fast. I found myself having a very difficult time with the bed rest that my body was requiring because I'm active. I'm always moving. I love to run. I've ran 2 marathons. I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 dozen half marathons. I don't know how many 5Ks. I've taught pole dancing. I've been really into yoga. I'm a dancer. Like, I love movement. And when I was pregnant, my body was demanding rest. It wasn't asking for rest, it was demanding rest. And I was resting with an attitude. a strong attitude. I remember feeling really stuck in my own body because of all of the rest it was requiring and how foreign it was to me to rest that much. I am a business owner and I'm the person that leads things in my business, this part of the business. My husband and I run our company together, but he has his own side of the company and I have my own side of the company. So when you are a solopreneur or a solo business owner, you're not resting as much as perhaps your body's requiring. And I wasn't, not in 2021. And when I got pregnant, my body began to demand that rest. And it was not being gentle about it. And I was having a very, very difficult time. And a part of me felt like I was being stripped of my freedom because I couldn't move as freely. I didn't really count with that part of pregnancy. So it was very surprising to me, everything that was happening and how fast it was happening. And that definitely impacted the way that I was showing up to those things. And then I had this aha moment. I don't have to rest. I get to rest. Write that one down. You don't have to rest. You get to rest. Put it in the comments so that you can remember that this is a big takeaway from this video. When I had that simple mindset shift, my entire reality changed because I stopped looking at the rest as something that I had to fight, something that I had to run from, and instead I began to embrace it. I began to look at the rest as something that was replenishing me, nourishing the baby I was growing, instead of feeling like it was hindering me and hindering the business that was now on some sort of pause because I was focused on expanding my family. This is very common for us as busy Black women business owners because we are used to going at a certain pace. And when we have moments in our experience that really shift the way we look at things and put us in a position to release the way we're looking at things, this starts to challenge us. And during that time, I was able to learn that I didn't have to be busy in order to be successful. And that taking the time to rest was also a way of being successful. And it was the way that I was being called to be successful in that very moment. And by choosing to release the energy that I had to be busy in order to be a perfect business owner, and instead embrace the joy of rest through my pregnancy, I was able to enjoy my pregnancy. I was able to stop resting with an attitude and start resting with joy. This is why the sixth sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening is that you are choosing a different reality. Because when you choose a different reality, you're no longer bound to the way things were being or the way you thought that things had to be. When you're choosing a different reality, you are taking ownership of yourself. You are looking at yourself and determining that you get to decide what you think. You get to decide how long you give life to certain thoughts, to any thought. And you get to decide how you're going to feel about it. And when you're having a spiritual awakening, there are a few things that are going to happen, especially when this sign shows up. I know that you've learned that being busy equates being successful. How can you not learn that? It's like a big messaging around us. Entrepreneurs talk about being busy, being booked and busy, being this and busy, blessed and busy. Like, we associate business with success, and that doesn't have to be true. There are many entrepreneurs and business owners that are busy and are not successful and are definitely not enjoying the life that they are living. And I was one of them. And that's why, even though I prayed for my baby and I prayed to be pregnant, I was having a very difficult time with rest. I was seeing it as a waste of my time because of all these beliefs I have adopted about what it meant to be successful and what it meant to rest, and how much they were challenging me when it was time to rest instead of time to work. And for a while, those beliefs were keeping me from learning about my situation and from seeing the signs that I was going through a spiritual awakening. When you are experiencing pregnancy, guess what? You are going through a spiritual awakening. Not only because you are experiencing this opportunity to see your reality differently and to choose a different reality, but also because you're learning to expand life, and that's deeply spiritual. Let me know if you would like for me to cover on a separate video all the reasons why a pregnancy is a deeply spiritual and is actually part of having a spiritual awakening. Because I would love to do that if y'all are interested. The thing that I learned during that experience is that as a business owner, and this is not just unique to me, this is the same thing I see with my clients. When you are going through something like a pregnancy, you deeply desire to give yourself permission to rest, give yourself permission to be available, especially as a first time mom, to everything that that experience is going to bring for you. And many of us don't give ourselves that room because we have learned that busyness equals success. So when this sign shows up for us when we're having a spiritual awakening, it's coming to teach us that busyness does not equal success, and that we can always choose a different reality, a reality that's in alignment with the version of ourselves we desire to be. And this is why choosing a different reality, it is a sign, a clear sign that you have experienced a spiritual awakening. Sign number 7. So, have you ever wondered, how do you sustain momentum after making changes in your life, especially the changes that feel really good to you? I recently moved to Honduras. I've been talking about the fact that I'm in Honduras now. I was living in the United States for about 26 years, and I recently moved back home. I'm actually living now in my childhood home, and my husband, my son, and I share my bedroom. It is a big difference for us because when we were living in Florida, which is the last place where we're at, we shared a 3-bedroom apartment. So we've gone from a 3-bedroom apartment to a 1-bedroom for all 3 of us. And this has been really stretching me. It has been really challenging for me because I love space. I love having space. There's a reason why we had a 3-bedroom apartment before I was even pregnant, because I love space. And being here, I've been really stretched. I've been stretched because there have been so many changes. If you ever moved, you know how uncomfortable and how much change a move brings. Imagine that internationally. Imagine that times 10. There is so much change happening right now for us, so much adjustments going on, and it has really been stretching me. And it's a part of me that was feeling like I was having a downgrade because of how much space I had in my older place and how much space we have here, which is interesting because my mom's home, this is a big home. At the same time, the way the space is allocated, I get the feeling like it's not a big home. So I've been feeling a little bit all over the place because when you're sharing a room, especially with a toddler, your bed schedule is actually more based off the toddler than yourself. So I've been feeling a little bit all over. I've been missing my routines, and it's been challenging for me to adjust because of how different things have been since we got here. And there's a part of me that deeply miss the glitz and the glamour from my old apartment too, and the luxury, the physical luxury that that apartment had. And I found myself really releasing some of those things. And as I have been diving deeper into what's going on and paying attention to the signs that I am experiencing, I've realized that embracing my new life has really helped me. And it has helped me because it's giving me an opportunity to see the ways in which I actually do have a system in place. And it's a system that looks different than what it used to look like. And it's a system that allows me to honor myself where I am right now because I'm in a different place than I was when I was living in Florida. And because I'm allowing myself to see that, I have given myself permission to release the attachment to the old routines and to instead embrace the ways that this new way of life is much better aligned with me and is supporting me in a way that the old way wasn't, which is really important when you are embracing all the changes that my family and I have been experiencing, especially in a season of transformation like we are right now. And this is why sign number 7 that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening is that you are living in your new reality. Because the thing is, sometimes people get really attached to the past. And when I say people, it's Yenory. And I know that when we get really attached to the past, it's very difficult to be in the present moment. It's very difficult to see all the ways in which this moment is truly a gift, not just to you, to the people around you, to the experiences that you are creating, and to the life that is emerging from all of your powerful decisions. And at times, you're going to feel all over the place. That's what happens when you're having a transition. That's what happens when things are changing. It's normal to have this perception that you are all over the place because things are different. and different is unfamiliar. And that requires that you are open to feeling uncomfortable, which is going to happen. And when you find yourself in those moments, it's very important that you give yourself the space to see that, because you're going to have those moments. Even if the transition, the changes you are experiencing are the exact changes that you envision in your life. Because I visualize myself being in this apartment, in this house with my family, having multiple generations under one roof. And guess what? It's challenging me, it stretches me. So, this is part of the dance of co creation that you're doing right now, that you're choreographing right now. It is a normal part of the process, okay? And in those moments, I know that you desire to give yourself permission to be available to everything you are experiencing, and to do it with compassion and with ease. And when you experience this sign that you're having a spiritual awakening, you get to see that the best place to be is the moment in which you are right now. And this is why living in your new reality, it is a clear sign that you have experienced and are experiencing a spiritual awakening. Sign number 8. Do you ever find yourself avoiding situations that make you feel uncomfortable, even though you know that they can lead to your growth? From ages 4 to 8, I grew up with my aunts here in Honduras. Why? Because my mother was living in the United States. She was in search of her sueño americano, of her American dream. And during those years of my life, I grew up with my aunts. These were very difficult years for me because I was a kid. I wanted to be with my mom, and I wasn't living with my dad either. So I was having a lot of difficulty feeling understood, feeling accepted with my family, because I'm the most. So I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I definitely felt that when I was a kid. And as I started to grow older, I began to have this desire, this yearning to talk to my mom about things I was experiencing and how they had impacted me as a kid, how her decision to come to the States and decide that we were going to stay with our aunts impacted me, impacted how I felt about myself, how I felt about rejection, about abandonment. And I was so afraid. I was so afraid to talk to her because I didn't want her to feel like I was coming for her. I didn't want her to feel like I was judging her. I didn't want her to feel like I didn't appreciate the decision that she made and the opportunities that I got as a result of that. You paying attention to what's happening? I didn't want her to feel, I didn't want her to think. I was so busy trying to or looking for ways to control how she was going to receive this conversation that often I wouldn't even have it. I was so uncomfortable with the idea that my mom was going to feel something other than love coming from me, that I was letting all of these feelings consume me, internalizing it, because I was afraid of how she would react if we ever had that conversation in the first place. And then, before I got pregnant, I got the courage to have this conversation with my mom. I wanted to clear my womb energy so that when I conceived the child, it wouldn't come and carry all of that energy that I was holding there, all of that pain I was holding there. So I spoke to my mom about this. I released the fear of the discomfort. I embraced that it was going to be uncomfortable. And after my mom and I had that conversation, it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, y'all. What started to happen in the middle of that conversation was that my mother began to see things from my perspective, and she wasn't taking things personally. She was very transparent and very receptive to what I was saying. And that experience, I feel like, took me from being a novice when it came to spiritual awakenings to being a master, someone that's willing to put themselves through this process over and over and do it with grace, because I was willing to face the discomfort of having this conversation with her, and now face the discomfort of having any conversation I wanted to have with anybody else, no matter how hard it felt to have it, no matter how scary it felt to have it. And it was because of that that I was able to shift myself into a new level when it came to my spiritual awakenings. And by releasing the fear of discomfort and choosing to embrace having that difficult conversation, my mother and I set a new foundation for our relationship. And now I feel like she knows me in a different way than before she didn't. And we can have more honest, loving conversations now because I had the courage to face that discomfort. I call it front ending that discomfort and allowing us to be transparent about how we felt about the way things were when we were growing up, when I was growing up. And this is why the eighth sign that you are having a spiritual awakening is that you are embracing discomfort. Because when you're moving in an unconscious state, you are doing the things you were taught. And we were taught to run from the things that feel uncomfortable. We were taught to hide from the things that don't feel good. And when you're having a spiritual awakening, you're choosing to do different things. And it's likely that anytime you find yourself having an uncomfortable conversation, you feel like a beginner, you feel like a novice, you feel scared, you feel afraid of how it's going to be received, you feel afraid of the outcomes that's going to have, the quote unquote backlash you're going to experience. And that keeps you from having those uncomfortable conversations. That keeps you from honoring yourself. That's one of the things that keeps you from seeing that you're actually in the middle of a spiritual awakening because you're focused on the things you don't like. You focus on the things you've been taught. And that is actually your portal into stepping into the out. That's your portal into stepping outside of your comfort zone. That's your portal into seeing the gifts that are on the other side of doing the thing that feels uncomfortable in the first place. And in order for you to experience what you desire, which is to release the judgment, which is to step into the things that feel uncomfortable without fear, this sign is going to show you that you can do those things. This sign is going to reveal to you that discomfort is actually very healing. And because it's very healing, you don't have to be afraid of it. And one thing I've learned is that in life, you're going to be uncomfortable either way. So might as well be uncomfortable being the most authentic version of yourself, honoring yourself and expressing yourself freely, no matter how uncomfortable that may feel, because either way, you're going to feel uncomfortable, even if it's a little bit. And this is why embracing discomfort is a clear sign that you are experiencing a spiritual awakening. Embracing discomfort with confidence. You and I both know that's uncomfortable. You and I both know how challenging that can be. And my clients also know that. And that's why they invest in having a proven system that can help them move through discomfort with joy, that can help them step into the discomfort with confidence and do it with ease. And if you are desiring access to the system, I want you to drop system in the comments below, and I'm going to personally send you the link so that you can book a 15-minute conversation with me, and together we can explore if the system is a good fit for you. So make sure you drop system in the comments below so that I can send you the link. Sign number 9. Do you often feel anxious about stepping into the unknown and wished that you could feel safe instead, especially in uncertainty? Right now, I am in the middle of a huge transition. I told you I just moved to Honduras. What I haven't shared with you is that I am currently revamping my business to bring it fully into alignment with my gift of being a fourth generational Garifuna High-Priestess, which is something that I haven't always looked as a gift or haven't always felt good about, if I'm going to be honest with you. For a while, I felt a lot of shame about my gift because of all the conditioning, all of the messaging I've heard around spirituality, especially living in America. In Honduras, these things are way more common and way more acceptable, while in the States, who wants to be the weird one that has the gift of connecting with the other side? Who wants to be the weird one that is able to tap into her intuition in a very scary way, for most people anyway? And I don't want to be that person. I was so afraid of being rejected. I was so afraid of being abandoned. And when I decided that I was going to make these changes, I could feel some anxiety around this. I can feel the fear of the unknown kind of coming up for me. And that fear was keeping me from taking action and doing the thing that in my heart and in my soul, I knew that had to be done. And the thing I've decided to do in this season of my life, and I know to do because of the different spiritual awakenings I've experienced, is trust the unknown. Making a decision to trust the unknown has really helped me ground myself and remain calm in the midst of what I can only describe as pure chaos. Because right now, so many things are changing, so many things are shifting, and it can feel really chaotic. When you are in the process of manifesting the things that you deeply desire, the universe rearranges itself so that you can be in alignment with the things that you desire. Write that down. When you are in the midst of manifesting the things you desire, the universe rearranges itself to align you with what you truly desire. And at times, when you're having a spiritual awakening, guess what? It's going to feel chaotic. A lot of things are moving. People are coming out of your life, people are coming into your life. Situations are changing. You may be moving to a different country. Your relationships might be shifting. And you may be wondering, well, why is all of this happening? Everything feels so unknown. Everything feels so uncertain. And that can bring feelings of fear. And instead, you can ground yourself in trust by releasing the attachment to focus on the things I cannot control and instead focusing on the things that I can. I can easily and masterfully integrate all of the things that I have been learning in this season of my life that can feel very chaotic. And that deep down is a sign that I'm having a spiritual awakening. And I can do this with ease and with calm because that helps me apply the things I'm learning in the future whenever I have other awakenings or as I'm supporting my clients through their own awakenings. This is why sign number 9 that you're having a spiritual awakening is that you are trusting in the unknown. Like me, you probably have learned that you can control things that are outside of your control. We're talking about how people think about you, what people think about you, how they feel about you, what they say about you, how you are perceived, how you are received. These are all things that I was taught that I could control. And I'm sure you have been taught that you can control too. In reality, we can't. And this is why it can feel really frustrating when you're not controlling other people, when you're not controlling what they think, what they feel, how they see you, how they perceive you, and all these other things, because you have been taught that you can do those things. And in reality, that's simply a lie. And it's a lie that we believe and we continue to believe until we find ourselves in the midst of a spiritual awakening that shines a light onto this lie so we can discover and let the truth emerge. This is why it's really difficult for us to see that there is a spiritual awakening happening when we are in the middle of the sign because of the things we have been taught to believe, because of the lies we are believing, whether we realize it or not, because they're happening. And if you're here, you likely desire to trust in the unknown. You likely desire to step into uncertainty, knowing without a shadow of a doubt that everything is unfolding in your favor. Not just in your favor, that everything is unfolding in the favor of humanity, even when we don't understand the things that are happening. This sign comes to show you that trusting in the unknown is your superpower. And it is your secret to protecting your peace with joy and with ease. And this is why trusting the unknown is a clear sign that you have experienced or are experiencing a spiritual awakening. Thank you for being here today, Miss Amores. Remember, everything that I've shared with you is truly meaningful only if you can prioritize yourself without feeling guilty. So be sure to check out this video so that you can learn the best ways to practice self-care as a Black woman business owner guilt-free. My name is Yenory Pouncil, and I'm here to make sure that you see things clearly. I'll see you in the next video. Hasta luego.